I stared at my phone screen in complete shock, reading Jessica's message over and over again. The photo showed Marcus with his arm around Jessica and Tyler at the Disneyland entrance, all three of them beaming with joy like the perfect little family. They looked so natural together, Marcus carrying Tyler's backpack, Jessica leaning into his shoulder, the boy making a peace sign between them. This was the same man who, just a week ago, had looked me dead in the eye and said he couldn't afford to take Emma and me anywhere for the holiday weekend. Sarah, we're barely making ends meet. He had said, not even looking up from his phone, $300 a week for groceries and household stuff, and you're still complaining. Maybe if you managed money better, we wouldn't be in this situation. I had suggested a simple trip to San Diego, nothing fancy, maybe a beach hotel for 2 nights. Emma had been asking to see the ocean for months, and I thought it would be nice for our family to have some quality time together. But Marcus shut it down immediately. If you want to go on vacation so badly, save up your own money. I'm not throwing away cash we don't have on some pointless trip. What? His words had stung, but I accepted them. Marcus worked hard as a factory director at Reynolds Manufacturing, and I knew money could be tight sometimes. My salary as a marketing manager was decent, but with rent, Emma's school expenses, and everything else, I figured he was right about being careful with spending. But now, looking at this photo, I realized everything he'd told me was a lie. Jessica's message continued. Oops, finger slipped and sent this to the wrong person. Sorry, sister-in-law. You don't mind, right? The smug emoji made my blood boil. This wasn't an accident. Jessica Williams had sent this photo on purpose. She wanted me to see exactly how much my husband was willing to spend on her and her son, while his own wife and daughter sat at home with our measly weekly allowance. I looked across our small living room at Emma, who was quietly coloring in her Disney princess book. She had been so excited when she heard Marcus mention Disneyland on a phone call last week, thinking maybe we were planning a family trip. When I gently told her it wasn't for us, her little face had fallen, but she'd tried to hide her disappointment. It's okay. Mommy, she had said, maybe Daddy will take us next time. Next time. My 6-year-old daughter was more understanding than her own father. I screenshot Jessica's message before she could delete it, which she did about 30 seconds later. Too late. I had all the evidence I needed. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through our bank statements on my phone. Marcus handled most of our finances, claiming it was easier that way. I had access to our joint checking account. But he always said his work salary went into a separate account that he used to pay the big bills: rent, utilities, car payments. Now I was starting to wonder what else he was paying for. I needed to think strategically about this. Confronting Marcus directly would just lead to him making excuses or gaslighting me about the situation. He was good at that, making me feel like I was being unreasonable or asking for too much. But I had an idea, a way to get answers and maybe some justice at the same time. I pulled up David Reynolds' contact information. As the CEO of Marcus's company, David had always been friendly to me at company parties. He seemed like a decent guy who cared about his employees' families. I typed out a message. Hi, Mr. Reynolds. I hope you're having a good holiday weekend. I was wondering if I could get an advance on Marcus's overtime pay for working this weekend. We have some unexpected expenses. I hit send before I could change my mind. David responded within minutes. Overtime. What overtime? We're closed all weekend for the holiday. Perfect. I had him exactly where I wanted him. Oh no, I typed back. Marcus told me he had to work mandatory overtime all weekend. If that's not true, then where is he? The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, Sarah, I think we need to talk. I'm sending you something right now. A notification popped up. David Reynolds had sent me $4. Maryland. His next message made my jaw drop. This is 2 months of your husband's salary. The full amount, not the reduced number he's been telling you. Use it however you want. If Marcus has a problem with it, he can find a new job. 2 months of salary was $4. Noronevutsi. That meant Marcus was making $2 a month, not the $1. $200 he'd been claiming, and if he was only giving me $300 a week, $1. $200 a month while keeping the rest for himself and his sister. That meant I'd been supporting our household on the bare minimum while he played generous big brother. I felt sick to my stomach. How long had this been going on? How many lies had he told me? My phone buzzed with another message from David. Sarah, I don't know what Marcus has been telling you about his finances, but lying to your wife about money is grounds for termination in my book. A man can have his fun, but he doesn't get to neglect his family while doing it. I stared at the money in my account. $4,000. More than enough for the Disney trip Marcus had refused to take us on. Well, if he could spend $8 euro on his sister and nephew, I could certainly spend $4 euro on my daughter and myself. I looked at Emma, still coloring quietly, unaware that her world was about to change completely. Emma, sweetie, I called out. How would you like to go to Disneyland this weekend? Her head snapped up, eyes wide with excitement. Really? Mommy, are we going with Daddy? I smiled. Though my heart was breaking a little, no. Baby, just you and me. We're going to have our own special adventure. Emma jumped up and ran over to hug me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Can we see the princesses? We can see all the princesses you want, I promised, hugging her tight. And if we happened to run into Daddy and his real family while we were there, well, that would just be a happy coincidence. I had some shopping to do. If Marcus wanted to play games with our family's money, he was about to learn that 2 could play at that game. But first, I needed to pack our bags and book the most expensive hotel package Disney had to offer. After all, I had David Reynolds' permission to spend freely. Time to show Marcus Williams exactly what his lies were going to cost him. By Saturday afternoon, Emma and I were checked into the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, the most expensive resort on the Disneyland property. I'd booked us a suite overlooking the park, complete with character dining reservations and fast-pass access to every ride Emma wanted to experience. The look of pure joy on my daughter's face as we walked through the hotel lobby made every penny worth it. She kept stopping to stare at the massive stone fireplace, the towering ceiling, and the cast members in their pristine uniforms. "Mommy, this is like a palace," she whispered, clutching her new Mickey Mouse ears. "You deserve to feel like a princess." "Sweetheart," I told her, meaning every word. We spent the morning exploring the park, riding the teacups, meeting characters, and eating overpriced but delicious snacks. Emma was having the time of her life, and for a few hours, I almost forgot about the betrayal that had brought us here. But at 3 p.m., just as we were heading to dinner at the Blue Bayou restaurant, the fanciest dining spot in the park, I spotted them. Marcus was at the host station, talking to the staff about their reservation. Jessica stood beside him, holding Tyler's hand and looking around the restaurant with wide eyes. She was wearing a new outfit designer jeans and a Gucci bag that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was exactly what I'd hoped would happen, and I was ready for it. "Mommy, look, it's Daddy," Emma suddenly shouted, waving enthusiastically at Marcus. His head snapped around, and the color drained from his face when he saw us sitting at one of the prime tables near the water. "We look like we belonged here," Emma, in her adorable Disney princess dress that I'd bought her that morning. Me in a new outfit that had cost more than Marcus typically gave me in 2 weeks. Marcus said something to the hostess and walked over to our table, leaving Jessica and Tyler behind. His expression was a mixture of shock and growing anger. "What the hell are you doing here?" he hissed, trying to keep his voice low. "Having dinner with my daughter," I replied calmly, cutting into my $60 steak. "The question is, what are you doing here? I thought you were working overtime all weekend." Emma looked confused, glancing between her parents. "Daddy, are you here to surprise us? Are we all going to eat together?" "No, sweetheart," I said before Marcus could answer. "Daddy is here with Aunt Jessica and Tyler. They're having their own special dinner." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Sarah, we need to talk. Privately." "I don't think so." I took another bite of my steak, savoring both the flavor and Marcus's obvious discomfort. "Emma and I are having a lovely evening. Why don't you go back to your family?" The word family hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus glanced back at Jessica, who was watching us with barely concealed smugness, and then at the other diners who were starting to notice our tense conversation. "You're making a scene," he whispered. "Am I?" I smiled sweetly. "I'm just a mother enjoying an expensive dinner with her daughter at Disneyland. You know, the trip you said we couldn't afford." Marcus's face was turning red now. "How are you even paying for this? This restaurant costs a fortune, and you're staying at the Grand Californian. Sarah, have you lost your mind? You're teaching Emma terrible spending habits." That's when I lost my composure. I stood up slowly, picked up my glass of water, and before Marcus could react, I threw it directly in his face. The restaurant went silent. Every guest, every server, every cast member turned to stare at us. Water dripped from Marcus's hair and down his shirt, soaking into his expensive polo. "Emma, sweetie," I said calmly, sitting back down and handing her a napkin. "Daddy got some water on his face because he's been working so hard. Mommy just helped him cool down." Emma, bless her heart, solemnly handed Marcus the napkin. "Here, Daddy. You should rest more so you don't get so tired." Marcus stood there dripping, unable to make a scene in front of our daughter and dozens of witnesses. He took the napkin from Emma's small hand, his expression a mixture of rage and humiliation. "We're going to talk about this when we get home," he said through gritted teeth. "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone and showing him my bank balance, "we're going to talk about this. $4,000, courtesy of your boss David Reynolds. He was very concerned when I told him you were working mandatory overtime this weekend." Marcus's face went completely white. He grabbed my phone to look at the screen, then immediately handed it back like it was on fire. "Sarah, I can explain, I'm sure you can, but not here, and not now. Emma and I are having dinner." I turned to our daughter, who was watching with wide, confused eyes. "Sweetheart, Daddy needs to go back to his table now. We'll see him later." But Daddy Emma started. "It's okay, baby," Marcus said, his voice cracking slightly. "You and Mommy enjoy your dinner. I'll talk to you both soon." He walked back to Jessica and Tyler, his shoulders hunched in defeat. I watched as Jessica immediately started interrogating him, her voice getting louder and more shrill by the second. Whatever he told her made her face go from smug to panicked in about 30 seconds. "Mommy," Emma said quietly, "is Daddy okay?" He looked sad. I reached over and smoothed her hair. "Daddy just learned that sometimes grown-ups have to face the consequences of their choices. Sweetheart, but that's not something you need to worry about. Are you ready for dessert?" Emma's face immediately brightened. "Can I get the Mickey Mouse ice cream?" "You can get whatever you want, baby. Today is all about you." As we waited for dessert, I watched Marcus's table out of the corner of my eye. Jessica kept gesturing angrily. Tyler looked confused and tired, and Marcus just sat there taking whatever verbal abuse his sister was dishing out. For the first time in years, I felt like I had the upper hand in my own marriage. But this was just the beginning. By the time this weekend was over, Marcus Williams was going to learn exactly what it felt like to lose everything you thought you could take for granted. I raised my wine glass in a silent toast to myself. Phase 1 of my plan was complete. Time for Phase 2. After dinner, Emma and I went back to our hotel suite while Marcus texted me non-stop, demanding to know where we were staying. I ignored every message. Instead, I decided to do some detective work of my own. Jessica had always been careless about her privacy settings on social media. Within 10 minutes of scrolling through her Instagram and Facebook posts, I had a clear picture of exactly how my husband had been spending our money. Designer handbags, expensive dinners at upscale restaurants, a brand new BMW that she'd posted about 6 months ago with the caption, "Thanks to the most amazing big brother ever." Weekend trips to Vegas, Napa Valley, and San Francisco. Professional photos of Tyler in what looked like a very expensive private school uniform, all of this on the salary of a part-time retail worker. My phone buzzed with a call from Marcus. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Where are you staying?" he demanded immediately. "That's none of your business, Sarah. This is insane. You can't just disappear with Emma and blow thousands of dollars we don't have." I laughed bitterly. "Money we don't have. Marcus, I just discovered you've been lying to me about your salary for God knows how long. You make $2,000 a month, not $1,200, and apparently you've been giving Jessica most of it." Silence on the other end. I saw her Instagram. Marcus, the BMW, the designer clothes, Tyler's private school. How long have you been supporting them? "Sarah, you don't understand. Jessica is sick. She can't work full-time, and Tyler has special needs." "Stop." I cut him off. "Just stop with the lies. How long?" Another long pause. Then, quietly, 4 years. 4 years. Emma was 6, which meant Marcus had been prioritizing his sister's family over his own daughter since she was 2 years old. "How much?" I asked, though I already suspected I knew the answer. "Sarah, how much?" "Marcus, $1,500 a month," he whispered. My knees nearly gave out. $1,500 every month for 4 years. That was $72,000 of our family's money that had gone to support Jessica's lifestyle, while Emma and I lived on scraps. And before that what? Jessica said something in her text about 4 years at $1,500. But before that, it was less. How much before that? And for how long? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. "Marcus, answer me." $1,000 a month for 3 years before that. I had to sit down. 7 years total. $108,000. More than enough to buy a house, start Emma's college fund, take real family vacations, or just live without constantly worrying about money. Jesus Christ. "Marcus, Do you realize what you've done to us? To Emma. Jessica needed help. Jessica needed help. So you decided to steal from your own daughter's future. I didn't steal anything. It's my money. It's our money. We're married. And even if it wasn't, you've been lying to me for 7 years about our financial situation. You've been making me feel guilty for asking for basic necessities while you hand out money like you're some kind of ATM machine. Emma came out of the bathroom in her new Disney princess pajamas, and I forced myself to lower my voice. "Mommy, who are you talking to?" she asked. "Go brush your teeth." "Sweetie, I'll be right there." When she was out of earshot, I continued in a harsh whisper. "Where is this money coming from? Marcus, if you're making $2,000 a month and giving Jessica $1,500, plus giving me $1,200, that's $3,700, but you only make $2,000. There are bonuses, overtime, performance incentives. Bullshit. David Reynolds would have mentioned those when he told me your real salary. Sarah, please, can we just talk about this at home? I'll explain everything. No, we're going to talk about it right now. Where is the extra money coming from? I heard him take a shaky breath. The company gives dividends to the management team. It's not a lot, but how much? About $800 a month. So his total income was closer to $2,800, not the $1,200 he'd been claiming. And he'd been giving Jessica more than half of it while telling me we were barely scraping by. "Marcus, I want you to listen to me very carefully," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Tomorrow morning, you're going to transfer every penny of the dividends you've been hiding from me into our joint account. Every penny from the last 7 years. Sarah, that money is already spent. Then you're going to figure out how to get it back. Because if you don't, I'm filing for divorce. And I'm taking Emma with me. And when the divorce is final, you'll be paying so much in child support and alimony that you won't have anything left to give to your precious sister. You can't do that. Watch me. And Marcus, if you think David Reynolds is going to let you keep your job after lying about working overtime to cover up your affair with your sister's finances, you're delusional. It's not an affair. Emotionally, it is. You've been more committed to Jessica's happiness than to your own wife and daughter's well-being. What else would you call it? I hung up before he could answer. Emma came out of the bathroom with her toothbrush in her hand. "Mommy, was that Daddy on the phone? Is he coming to stay with us?" I knelt down to her level and smoothed her hair. "No, baby. Daddy has some grown-up things he needs to figure out first. But you know what? That means we get to have extra special mommy-daughter time, like a sleepover party. Exactly like a sleepover party. Want to watch a movie and eat room service ice cream?" Emma nodded enthusiastically, and I forced myself to smile. She didn't need to know that her world was about to change completely. For tonight, I just wanted her to feel loved and special. But tomorrow, Marcus was going to face the consequences of 7 years of lies. And Jessica Williams was about to learn that the gravy train had officially derailed. Sunday morning brought an unexpected text from Jessica. I was having breakfast with Emma on our balcony, watching the early morning crowds enter the park below, when my phone buzzed. "We need to talk. Meet me at the Starbucks in downtown Disney in an hour. Come alone." I almost deleted it without responding. But curiosity got the better of me. What could Jessica possibly want to say to me that she couldn't say in front of Marcus? I arranged for the hotel's childcare service to watch Emma for a few hours, another luxury I never would have considered before learning about our real financial situation, and walked to the shopping district. Jessica was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with dark sunglasses on despite being indoors. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect makeup was smudged, and her designer clothes looked like she'd slept in them. "You look like hell," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. She pulled off her sunglasses, revealing red, puffy eyes. "Thanks to you. Thanks to me. Jessica, I didn't make Marcus lie to me for 7 years. I didn't make him choose to prioritize your financial needs over his own daughters. You don't understand what you've done." Her voice was shaky, desperate. "You think this is just about money? You think I'm just some spoiled bitch who's been taking advantage of her brother, aren't you?" Jessica leaned forward, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Tyler is dying. Sarah, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach." "What?" "He has leukemia, stage 4. We found out 6 months ago." Tears started streaming down her face. "The doctors say with aggressive treatment, he might have a 30% chance of living 5 more years. Without it, he has maybe 6 months. My hands went cold. Tyler, the little boy I'd watched grow up, who called me Aunt Sarah, who Emma played with at family gatherings, was dying. The insurance doesn't cover experimental treatments." Jessica continued. "The BMW, the designer clothes, the expensive dinners that's all been for Tyler, Make-A-Wish stuff. You know, I wanted him to see his mom looking beautiful and successful before—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "Jessica, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Marcus has been helping us pay for treatments. The money you think he's been wasting on me, it's been going to keep my son alive." I felt sick. All of my righteous anger, my careful planning for revenge, had I been punishing my husband for trying to save his nephew's life. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I asked. "Because you never liked me." Jessica's voice turned bitter. "You always resented how close Marcus and I are. You would have found a way to make this about you, about your marriage. Tyler needed help, and Marcus knew you'd turn it into a competition. That's not true, isn't it? Look what you've done. One photo of us at Disneyland trying to give Tyler some happy memories before he dies, and you've destroyed everything. Marcus might lose his job because of your little stunt with his boss. Do you know what happens to Tyler's treatment if we can't pay for it?" The guilt hit me like a tsunami. Had I really been so petty, so jealous, that I'd sabotaged a child's cancer treatment over money? But then something Jessica said nagged at me. "Wait, you said the insurance doesn't cover experimental treatments. What insurance?" Jessica's face flickered with something panic. "What do you mean? You said you work part-time retail. Most retail jobs don't offer health insurance, especially not the kind that would cover any cancer treatment, experimental or otherwise. We have state insurance, Medicaid. Medicaid covers childhood cancer treatment." "Jessica, I know because my friend's daughter had leukemia 2 years ago. The state program covered everything except the absolute most cutting-edge experimental drugs." Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "It's complicated. How much does Tyler's treatment actually cost?" "I don't see how that's any of your business, Jessica." I leaned forward, my voice sharp. "How much?" "The doctors said it could be up to $2 million total." "That's not what I asked. How much are you paying out of pocket right now?" The silence stretched between us. Jessica looked everywhere except at my face. "Oh my God," I whispered. "You're lying. Tyler isn't dying." "Is he?" "He is sick." Jessica snapped. "He has health problems." "What kind of health problems?" "Asthma, severe asthma. The doctors say he could have complications." "Asthma?" I sat back in my chair, feeling a mix of relief and rage. You just tried to convince me that your son was dying of cancer, so I'd feel guilty about questioning where my husband's money has been going. It's serious asthma. Jessica, kids with asthma don't need BMWs and Gucci handbags. They need inhalers and air purifiers. Her face crumpled, and for a moment I thought she was going to confess everything. Instead, she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "You want to know the truth," she said, her voice turning vicious. "The truth is that Marcus will always choose me over you. Watch this." She held up her phone, showing me a text conversation with Marcus from that morning. "Jessica, Sarah is being crazy. She's threatening to take Emma away from you." "Marcus, I know. I'm trying to fix this." "Jessica, maybe it would be better if you just let her go. You've been miserable with her for years anyway." "Marcus, don't say that." "Jessica, I'm just saying some women aren't worth the trouble. Emma would be better off with a father who isn't constantly stressed about his wife's drama." "Marcus." "Jessica, that's enough." "Jessica, I'm here for you no matter what. You know that." "Right. Tyler and we're your real family." "Marcus." "I know." I stared at the screen, feeling something cold and final settle in my chest. Marcus hadn't defended me. He hadn't told his sister to stop talking about his wife and daughter like we were disposable. He'd just agreed. "Still think he loves you more than me?" Jessica asked, her smile returning. I stood up slowly, pulled out my own phone, and took pictures of her text conversation before she could stop me. "You know what, Jessica, you're right. Marcus has made his choice. He chose you years ago when he decided to lie to me about our finances. He chose you when he decided your comfort was more important than his daughter's future. And he chose you this morning when he didn't defend his wife. So you'll back off. Stop causing problems." I smiled at her, and something in my expression made her lean back in her chair. "Oh, honey, I'm just getting started." I walked away, leaving Jessica sitting alone in Starbucks, and pulled out my phone to call David Reynolds. It was time for Marcus to learn that some choices have permanent consequences. David Reynolds answered on the second ring. "Sarah, how was your Disney trip? Educational?" I said, walking through downtown Disney with purpose. "David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course." "Has Marcus ever mentioned selling his company's shares?" There was a pause. "Why do you ask?" "Because my friend works in real estate, and she told me yesterday that our house has been on the market for 2 weeks. Marcus never mentioned it to me." Jesus Christ. David's voice was sharp. "Sarah, Marcus came to me 3 weeks ago asking about liquidating his shares in the company. He said it was for a family emergency, but he was very secretive about the details. I told him he'd need spousal consent for something that significant." My blood turned to ice. "How much are his shares worth?" "About $150,000. I had to sit down on a nearby bench. He was going to sell our house and his company shares without telling me." "For what?" I took a deep breath. "David, I think Marcus has been gambling. Or there's something else going on that's much bigger than just helping his sister." "What makes you say that?" I explained about the 7 years of hidden money transfers, the lies about his salary, and Jessica's strange behavior at Starbucks. When I got to the part about her fake cancer story, David let out a long whistle. "Sarah, I think you need to come back to Los Angeles immediately. Don't tell Marcus you're coming." "Can you do that?" "Why?" "Because I'm going to have our company accountant audit Marcus's expense reports and financial records going back 5 years. If he's been embezzling money from the company to support whatever this is, I need to know before Monday morning." My heart stopped. "You think he's been stealing from the company?" "I think a man who lies to his wife about money for 7 years is capable of lying about a lot of things. Can you get Emma and drive back today?" "Yes, but David, Sarah, listen to me. If Marcus has been embezzling, and if he's desperate enough to try to sell the house and his shares without telling you, he might be in serious legal trouble. The kind of trouble that could affect Emma's future." I closed my eyes, feeling the last of my naive hopes crumble. The man I'd married, the father of my daughter, might be a criminal. "I'll be back in LA by tonight," I said. "Good. I'll call you tomorrow with what we find." After I hung up, I sat on the bench for a long time, watching families walk by with their Disney shopping bags and happy children. Just yesterday, Emma and I had been one of those families. Now I felt like I was watching someone else's life through glass. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Sarah, please come home. We need to talk about this like adults." I stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Emma and I will be home tonight. We'll talk then." But I had no intention of talking. I was done with Marcus's explanations and excuses. It was time to protect my daughter and myself from whatever disaster my husband had created. The drive back to Los Angeles was the longest 3 hours of my life. Emma fell asleep in her car seat, clutching her new Mickey Mouse doll. Exhausted from our whirlwind Disney adventure, I spent the entire drive making mental lists of everything I needed to do. First, secure our joint bank accounts and make sure Marcus couldn't drain them. Second, contact a divorce attorney. Third, figure out how to protect Emma from whatever was coming. I was so lost in my planning that I almost missed the notification on my phone when we were about 20 minutes from home. It was a news alert from a local LA news station. "Reynolds Manufacturing Executive under investigation for embezzlement." My hands started shaking so badly I had to pull over to read the full article. David Reynolds, CEO of Reynolds Manufacturing, announced Sunday evening that the company is conducting an internal investigation into potential financial irregularities involving a senior employee. Sources close to the investigation suggest that hundreds of thousands of dollars may have been misappropriated over several years. The employee in question has been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. They didn't name Marcus directly, but they didn't need to. In a company with only 12 management-level employees, it wouldn't take long for people to figure out who was being investigated. My phone started ringing immediately. "Marcus." I let it go to voicemail, then listened to the message. "Sarah, I can explain everything. It's not what it looks like. Please, just come home and let me explain." But his voice sounded different. Panicked, desperate, guilty. I called David Reynolds instead. "I saw the news," I said when he answered. "I'm sorry." "Sarah, I wanted to tell you privately, but the accounting firm we hired works fast. Marcus has been systematically stealing from company accounts for 3 years. We're talking about close to $400,000. I felt like I was falling down a deep hole. 400,000. The money trail leads to a series of gambling debts, high-stakes poker games, online betting, some casino markers in Vegas. It looks like he got in over his head and started taking company money to pay off the wrong people. Oh God, everything suddenly made sense. The secret money transfers to Jessica weren't about helping family. They were about paying gambling debts. The house sale, the company shares, all of it was Marcus trying to cover up his theft before it was discovered. "Sarah, there's something else. The people he owes money to, They're not the kind of people who accept payment plans. A chill ran down my spine. What are you saying? I'm saying you and Emma might not be safe. Marcus owes money to some very dangerous people. And when they find out he can't pay, David's voice trailed off. I looked back at Emma, still sleeping peacefully in her car seat, and made a decision that would change everything. David, I need you to do something for me. I need you to call the police and tell them that Marcus Williams might be planning to flee with his family. Tell them his wife and daughter are missing and you're concerned for their safety. Sarah, what are you planning? I'm going to disappear for a while, just until this all gets sorted out. That's probably smart. Do you have somewhere safe to go? I thought about my sister in San Francisco, my college friends scattered across the country, my parents in Phoenix, all places Marcus would look for us immediately. I'll figure it out. But David, when the police come looking for Marcus, make sure they know that Emma and I had nothing to do with this. We're victims, not accomplices. Of course. Sarah, be careful and keep me posted on where you are. I hung up and stared at my reflection in the rearview mirror 24 hours ago. I'd been a housewife worried about vacation budgets. Now I was planning to go into hiding from my criminal husband and the dangerous people he owed money to. I turned the car around and started driving north toward San Francisco. Emma could start the school year there while I figured out how to untangle my life from Marcus's crimes. My phone rang again. Marcus. This time I answered. Where are you? His voice was frantic now. Safe. Sarah, you have to listen to me. I never meant for any of this to happen. It started small, just a few thousand to cover some bad bets. And then it spiraled. Stop. I cut him off. Marcus, I know about the embezzlement. I know about the gambling debts. I know about the dangerous people you owe money to. Silence. How, he finally whispered, does it matter? The question is, what are you going to do now? I'm going to fix this. I'm going to turn myself in, pay back the money, make this right. With what money, Marcus? You don't have $400,000. You can't even sell the house or your company shares now that you're under investigation. I'll figure something out. No, you won't, because there is no way out of this. You destroyed our family for gambling debts, and now you're going to prison. Sarah, please, Emma and I are never coming back. Marcus, we're done. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences. I hung up and immediately blocked his number. In the car seat behind me, Emma stirred and opened her eyes. Mommy, where are we going? I looked at my daughter in the rearview mirror. My beautiful, innocent daughter who deserved so much better than the father she'd been given. We're going on another adventure, sweetheart. A really big one, like Disneyland. Even better, I said, though my heart was breaking. We're going to see Aunt Rachel in San Francisco, and then we're going to start a whole new life. What about Daddy? I took a deep breath. Daddy has some very serious grown-up problems to solve. Baby, it's gonna be just you and me for a while. Emma nodded solemnly, like she understood more than a 6-year-old should have to. As we drove through the California night toward our uncertain future, I made myself a promise. Whatever it took, however long it took, I was going to build a life for Emma where she never had to worry about money, or lies, or men who put their own selfish needs above their family's safety. Marcus Williams had made his choice 7 years ago when he decided that his gambling addiction was more important than his wife and daughter. Now Emma and I were making ours. 3 months later, I was sitting in my sister Rachel's kitchen in San Francisco, reading the morning news on my laptop while Emma got ready for her first day at her new school. The headlines had become a daily ritual of watching my old life implode from a safe distance. Former Reynolds manufacturing executive pleads guilty to embezzlement. Local man sentenced to 5 years in federal prison for corporate theft. Gambling addiction leads to family's destruction. A cautionary tale. Marcus had made the front page of the Los Angeles Times business section. The article included our old wedding photo, the two of us smiling and hopeful, completely unaware of how spectacularly everything would fall apart. "You okay?" Rachel asked, setting a cup of coffee next to my laptop. Getting there, I closed the browser and focused on Emma, who was excitedly showing off her new backpack. "Are you ready for your first day, sweetheart? Do you think the kids will like me?" Emma asked, the question that had been worrying her for weeks. "They're going to love you," I said, kneeling down to fix her hair. "You're smart, funny, kind, and brave. What's not to love?" Emma beamed and hugged me tight. "I love you. Mommy, I love you too. Baby." After I dropped Emma off at school and Rachel left for work, I finally allowed myself to read the full article about Marcus's sentencing. 5 years in federal prison, plus restitution of $400. ED0 that he didn't have. The article mentioned that his wife and daughter had relocated for their safety, but didn't specify where. Good. I intended to keep it that way. My phone buzzed with a call from David Reynolds. I'd been in regular contact with him throughout Marcus's legal proceedings. He'd been helpful in making sure Emma and I weren't considered suspects or accomplices. "Sarah, did you see the news? Just reading it now. 5 years. Could have been worse. The gambling addiction and his cooperation with the investigation helped with the sentencing. But Sarah, there's something else." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Jessica Williams was arrested yesterday." "For what?" "Fraud. It turns out she was running a fake charity scam. Claiming to raise money for children with cancer, she bilked about 30 families out of their life savings over the past 2 years. I sat down hard in Rachel's kitchen chair. Jesus, it gets worse. The money Marcus was sending her wasn't going to Tyler's medical bills or to help with her living expenses. She was using it to fund the fake charity renting office space, printing fake materials, hiring actors to play sick children at fundraising events, and Tyler, completely healthy, never had asthma, never had cancer, never had anything more serious than the occasional cold. I felt sick. So Marcus destroyed our family, stole $400,000, and went to prison to help his sister run charity fraud. Basically, yes, the FBI thinks Jessica manipulated Marcus into believing Tyler was seriously ill. She's been playing this con on him for years. Why are you telling me this? Because Jessica's lawyer is trying to argue that Marcus was the mastermind behind the whole operation, that he used his position at the company to fund an elaborate fraud scheme. They're trying to make him look like the criminal genius and her like the innocent victim. That's ridiculous. Marcus might be a gambling addict and a thief, but he's not smart enough to mastermind anything. He can barely balance a checkbook. I know that, and you know that, but a jury might see it differently, especially if they paint you as being in on it. My blood went cold. What do you mean? Jessica's defense team has been asking questions about you, about how you disappeared right before Marcus was arrested, about whether you might have known about the embezzlement and helped cover it up. That's insane. I know it is. But Sarah, you need to be prepared. You might get called to testify at Jessica's trial. I thought about Emma starting school, making new friends, beginning to feel safe and settled. The idea of dragging her back into the nightmare of Marcus's crimes made me feel physically ill when, probably not for 6 months, these federal cases move slowly. But I wanted to give you a heads up. After I hung up with David, I sat in Rachel's sunny kitchen and tried to process this new information. Not only had Marcus destroyed our family for a lie, but now his sister was trying to destroy what was left of my reputation to save herself. I opened my laptop and did something I'd been avoiding for months. I Googled myself. The results were worse than I'd expected. Reynolds Manufacturing Embezzlement. Was wife involved? Missing woman linked to corporate theft case. Family disappears after husband's arrest. Guilt or fear. There were entire forum threads dedicated to speculating about my involvement in Marcus's crimes. People who had never met me were convinced I was either a criminal mastermind or a naive victim, depending on their perspective, but the worst part was the photos. Someone had dug up pictures from my social media accounts, Emma's birthday parties, family vacations, Christmas mornings. My daughter's face was splashed across gossip websites alongside headlines about fraud and embezzlement. I called the one person I knew could help, my college roommate Lisa, who had become a high-powered attorney in New York. Sarah, I was wondering when you'd call. I've been following your situation in the news. Lisa, I need help. Marcus's sister is trying to drag me into her fraud case. And there are pictures of Emma all over the internet, connected to this story. Okay, slow down. Tell me everything. I spent an hour explaining the whole situation. The Disney trip, the discovery of Marcus's lies, the embezzlement, the gambling debts, Jessica's charity fraud. When I finished, Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, you need to hire a criminal defense attorney immediately. But I didn't do anything. That doesn't matter. You're married to a convicted felon. You disappeared right before his arrest. And now his co-conspirator is trying to implicate you in a federal fraud case. Innocent or not. You need serious legal representation. I can't afford that kind of lawyer. Yes, you can. Remember that settlement I helped you get from your car accident 5 years ago? The money you never touched because Marcus said you should save it for emergencies. I'd completely forgotten about that money. It was sitting in a separate account that Marcus had never known about my secret safety net that I'd never had to use. How much do you think this will cost? A good criminal defense attorney will run you about $50,000 for a case like this. But Sarah, it's worth it. Your freedom and Emma's future are worth it. What about Emma? If this goes to trial, if my face is all over the news, we'll figure out a way to protect her. Maybe she stays with Rachel during the trial. Maybe we get a gag order on using her image. But first things first, we need to make sure you don't end up in prison for crimes you didn't commit. After I hung up with Lisa, I went to pick up Emma from school. She was bubbling with excitement about her new teacher and the friends she'd made at lunch. She looked so happy, so normal, so blissfully unaware that our lives were about to be turned upside down again. Mommy, can I have a sleepover with my new friend Chloe this weekend? We'll see. Sweetheart, we might have to take another trip soon. Where are we going now? I looked at my daughter, my brave, resilient, beautiful daughter who had already been through more upheaval in 6 months than most children experience in a lifetime. I don't know yet, baby, but wherever we go, we'll be together. Will Daddy be there? No, sweetheart. Daddy can't travel with us anymore. Emma nodded solemnly. Accepting this new reality with the adaptability that children possess and adults lose somewhere along the way. That night, After Emma was asleep, I sat in Rachel's guest room and made a list of everything I needed to do to prepare for the legal battle ahead. At the top of the list, I wrote, "Protect Emma at all costs. Everything else, my reputation, my privacy, my peace of mind was secondary to making sure my daughter emerged from this disaster with as little damage as possible." Marcus and Jessica Williams had made their choices. Now it was time for me to make mine. The federal courthouse in Los Angeles was swarming with reporters when I arrived for Jessica's trial 6 months later. My attorney, Margaret Chen, the best criminal defense lawyer Lisa's money could buy, had prepared me for this moment. But seeing the cameras and microphones still made my stomach churn. "Remember," Margaret said as we walked up the courthouse steps, "stick to the facts. Don't let emotion creep into your answers. Jessica's lawyer is going to try to make you look like either a criminal or a fool. You're neither." I'd spent the past 6 months rebuilding my life in San Francisco while preparing for this day. Emma was thriving in her new school. I'd found a good job with a tech startup, and we'd moved into our own apartment. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny. Until Jessica's defense team started trying to destroy me. The prosecution's case was straightforward. Jessica Williams had created a fake charity called Hope for Healing. Claiming to raise money for children with terminal illnesses, she'd stolen over $800 from grieving families who thought they were helping sick kids. The money had gone to fund her lavish lifestyle and pay off debts. But Jessica's lawyer, a slick man in an expensive suit named Richard Hoffman, had a different story to tell. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said in his opening statement, "my client Jessica Williams is not a criminal mastermind. She's a victim of her own brother's manipulation and his wife's greed." I watched from the gallery as Hoffman painted me as the real villain. According to him, I had discovered Marcus's embezzlement scheme and blackmailed him into giving me money to keep quiet. When that wasn't enough, I'd convinced him to expand into charity fraud through his vulnerable sister. It was complete fiction, but Hoffman told it with the confidence of someone who'd convinced juries of stranger things. When it was my turn to testify, I walked to the witness stand with my head held high. In the defendant's chair, Jessica looked nothing like the confident woman who had taunted me at Disneyland. Prison had not been kind to her. She looked thin, pale, and desperate. The prosecutor, Assistant U, Attorney Michael Torres, led me through my testimony methodically. I explained about discovering Marcus's lies, about the hidden money transfers, about Jessica's fake cancer story. I kept my voice steady and my answers factual, just as Margaret had coached me. Then it was Hoffman's turn. "Mrs. Williams," he began, "you testified that you were unaware of your husband's financial crimes. But isn't it true that you discovered his embezzlement months before you reported it?" "No, that's not true." "Isn't it true that you used your knowledge of his crimes to blackmail him into giving you money?" "Absolutely not." "Then how do you explain the $4,000 that suddenly appeared in your bank account the weekend of your Disney trip?" I looked at the jury. 12 ordinary people who would decide whether I was a criminal or a victim. That money came from my husband's boss, David Reynolds. When he learned that Marcus had been lying about working overtime, Mr. Reynolds was concerned about my family's welfare. "How convenient," Hoffman said with a smirk. "And isn't it true that you used that money to stalk and harass my client at Disneyland?" "I used that money to take my daughter on a vacation that my husband had claimed we couldn't afford. while he was secretly spending thousands on his sister. You threw water in your husband's face in a crowded restaurant. Does that sound like the behavior of a rational person? Margaret objected, but the damage was done. Hoffman was making me look unstable, vindictive. Mrs. Williams, my client has testified that you pressured your husband to give her money for fake medical treatments. What do you say to that? I say your client is a liar. I replied, my composure finally cracking. She lied about Tyler having cancer. She lied about needing money for medical bills. She lied about running a charity. Your client is a professional con artist who manipulated my husband into destroying our family. Objection. Hoffman shouted, sustained. The judge said, the jury will disregard, but I wasn't done. 7 months of anger and frustration came pouring out. Your client sent me photos of her with my husband to hurt me. She bragged about taking money that should have gone to my daughter. She threatened to kill me when I discovered the truth. And now she's sitting in that chair trying to blame me for her crimes because she can't face the consequences of her own actions. Mrs. Williams, please, the judge started. She's a manipulative, lying, that's enough. The judge's gavel came down hard. The witness will control herself or be held in contempt. Margaret was on her feet immediately. Your Honor, my client has been under enormous stress. The witness is excused, the judge said firmly.
As I walked back to my seat,
I caught Jessica's eye. For just a moment, her mask slipped, and I saw the real her cold, calculating, utterly without remorse. She mouthed something at me that I couldn't quite make out, but the malice in her expression was clear. The trial continued for 3 more days. Marcus testified via video link from federal prison, looking haggard and broken. He confirmed that Jessica had manipulated him with lies about Tyler's health, but he also admitted that he'd been gambling long before she came to him for money. Tyler himself testified a healthy, normal 8-year-old boy who had no idea that his mother had been using his name to steal money from grieving families. Watching him answer the prosecutor's gentle questions about his illness was heartbreaking. David Reynolds testified about Marcus's embezzlement and confirmed that I had no knowledge of the crimes. Several of Jessica's fraud victims testified about how she'd convinced them to donate their life savings to help children like Tyler, but the moment that sealed Jessica's fate came when the prosecution played a recording that I'd never heard before, a phone call between Jessica and Marcus from 2 years earlier. Marcus, I need more money for Tyler's treatments, Jessica's voice said through the courtroom speakers. Jess, I've already given you $15,000 this year. I don't have any more. Then find some. Rob the company if you have to. My son is dying. I can't steal from David. You can and you will. Unless you want to explain to Tyler why his uncle let him die because he was too much of a coward to help. The manipulation was so clear, so calculated, that several jury members visibly recoiled. Jessica's own words had condemned her. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on all counts. As the verdict was read, Jessica collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Her lawyer put his arm around her, but even he looked disgusted by what he'd heard in that recording. The judge set sentencing for the following month, 15 years in federal prison, plus full restitution to the victims. Outside the courthouse, Margaret and I were swarmed by reporters. Mrs. Williams, how do you feel about the verdict? Mrs. Williams, will you be filing a civil suit against Jessica Williams? Mrs. Williams, what's next for you and your daughter? I stopped at the top of the courthouse steps and turned to face the cameras. Jessica Williams destroyed my family with her lies and manipulation. I said. She turned my husband into a criminal and stole money from families who are already suffering. I'm grateful that justice has been served, and I hope her victims can finally begin to heal. What about your marriage? A reporter shouted, My marriage ended the day I discovered that my husband valued his sister's lies more than his wife's trust. I said, I'm building a new life with my daughter, and we're both better off without the toxic influence of the Williams family. As we walked away from the courthouse, Margaret squeezed my shoulder. You did good up there, she said. It's over now. But I knew it wasn't really over. Jessica would appeal. There would be more headlines, more questions. Marcus still had 3 years left on his sentence. Still, for the first time in almost a year, I felt like I could breathe freely. That evening, I called Emma from my hotel room. Hi, Mommy. How did court go? It went well, sweetheart. The bad people are going to be punished for the bad things they did. Does that mean we can come home now? I looked out the window at the Los Angeles skyline, the city where I'd been married, where I'd raised Emma for the first 6 years of her life, where I'd learned what it felt like to have your heart broken by the person who was supposed to protect it. We are home. Baby, I said. Our home is wherever we're together. I love you. Mommy, I love you too. Emma, more than anything in the world. After I hung up, I opened my laptop and did something I hadn't done in months. I Googled myself. The headlines were different now. Embezzlement victim. Testifies against sister-in-law in fraud trial. Mother protects. Daughter from husband's criminal family. Woman rebuilds life. After discovering husband's double life. I was no longer the suspicious wife who had disappeared. I was the victim who had fought back. I closed the laptop and started packing for my flight back to San Francisco. Back to Emma. Back to the life we were building together. Marcus and Jessica Williams had made their choices. Now Emma and I were free to make ours. And for the first time in years, the future looked bright.